The fresh evacuation order in the densely populated area could displace up to 80,000 people. Around 30,000 are already displaced and living in dozens of refugee camps there. The options of where to go are increasingly limited. The UN says almost 88% of Gaza is under evacuation orders or within Israeli militarised zones, leaving more than 2 million people confined to just 12% of its land. Israeli forces dropped leaflets urging Deir al-Balah residents to move south to al-Mawasi in Khan Younis, already feeling the strain of mass displacement, and attacked several times by the IDF. The UN and other agencies relocated key operations to Deir al-Balah from Rafah more than a year ago. This report from Jonathan Rugman contains some distressing images.
This morning, the al-Aylan family buried 5 of their relatives killed in an Israeli airstrike. There's a bitter irony to their hopelessness because they were living in a tent in Khan Younis, an area where the Israelis are now demanding thousands more Palestinians seek shelter in the wake of their latest military advance. Rarely can so many funerals from a conflict have been broadcast to the outside world, and to the astonishment of these mourning relatives, rarely to so little purpose.
We had expectations that the massacres would stop, that someone would stand by our side and stop this incinerator, but no action was taken. We've reached a phase where our expectations are dead. We stopped expecting anything or waiting for anything from anyone.
Today, the Palestinian death toll pushed past 59,000. Gaza's health ministry said 19 had died of hunger in the last 24 hours. Britain, France and more than 20 other countries condemned what they called the drip feeding of aid and the inhumane killing of hundreds of civilians in search of food.
Almost 1,000 civilians have been killed since May, seeking aid, including 100, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this weekend alone. There are near daily reports of Israeli troops opening fire on people to access food. Israeli jets have hit women and children waiting for a health clinic to open. An Israeli drone has struck down children filling water containers, which Israeli officials blamed on a technical error. Hamas is, of course, contributing to the chaos and taking advantage of it. But I utterly condemn the killing of civilians seeking to meet their basic needs. The Israeli government must answer what possible military justification can there be for strikes that have killed desperate, starving children? What immediate actions are they taking to stop this litany of horrors? And what will they do to hold those responsible to account?
Words which will do nothing to stop this air and ground assault into Deir al-Balah for the first time, with leaflets dropped on up to 80,000 Palestinians, ordering them to evacuate. So families are on the move once again, fleeing the last area of the Gaza Strip not to suffer major war damage. Up till now, a hub for health clinics and clean supplies of water. The Kamal family are literally clinging on to one prized possession, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. And they struggle to understand why the Arab and Muslim worlds haven't intervened on their behalf.
We live on the edge. We don't sleep. We have no food or water, no flour, nothing. And even though we accepted this injustice, the evacuation order has come along to make things worse.
It's possible that Hamas is hiding Israeli hostages in Deir al-Balah, but the UN and aid agencies oppose this latest military operation on the grounds that it will worsen the desperation here.
The whole of Gaza, the whole population of Gaza has been displaced on multiple occasions. Many people have literally lost count now of how many times they've been forcibly displaced, and each time it gets harder and harder to find land, to carry your belongings, and as I said, people are absolutely exhausted.
Tonight, international condemnation of Israel's actions is certainly growing. although the United States is staying relatively silent. And in the meantime, the war grinds on. These white packages of varying sizes, parcels destined for an afterlife, they pray will be more peaceful than the life they live here.
Well, the director of Gaza's field hospitals, Dr. Marwan al-Hams, was reportedly abducted this morning by what the Gaza authorities called an Israeli Special Forces unit. Since October 7th, there have been reports of hundreds of doctors and healthcare workers detained by Israeli authorities. The details of today's incident are still unclear, and the IDF has not responded to our requests for further information. In the same incident today, the journalist Tamir al-Zanin was killed, and Ibrahim Abu Ashiba, a cameraman who works for Channel 4 News, was severely injured. Ibrahim is now in hospital being treated for his injuries. Well, joining me now is Fleur Hassan Nahum. 25 countries, many of whom regard themselves as close allies of Israel. Britain sends weapons to Israel, are condemning your behaviour as inhumane killing of civilians and children. Can you really just dismiss it?
Well, it's interesting that you didn't mention at all in your report, or the reporters from the field, nobody is talking about the deal that is supposed to have been signed with Hamas. The negotiations that are currently going on in Doha to stop the whole war, and that Hamas are dragging its feet, even though Israel has shown compromise in the last few hours. So if the world wants this to stop, then why is the pressure not on Hamas to actually come to terms to sign the deal?
Well, Hamas has been saying it's been ready to do a deal for months and months, and that it is you. So let's not talk about that. That is the problem. The ongoing problem with those negotiations is that you blame each other. Let's stick to the killing of civilians, which is going on and has carried on today. Why are you carrying on doing it when you're being condemned by your own allies?
We all want the war to end. We're all exhausted from this terrible war. There have been unmeasurable losses on both sides, but unfortunately...
Well, they are measurable, and they're measured at over 59,000. 27 today, and another 19 starving. So they are measurable losses.
Well, you are using, and unfortunately, this is what the media does, unverified sources from the Gaza Health Ministry.
We can't verify them because you won't let us in. We know that. Well, that's an old argument as well. So let's stick to the condemnation of your allies.
Why should we be talking about numbers that are pulled out by genocidal terrorist regime that started this war to begin with? So let's keep everything in proportion. What I was trying to say is that we all want this war to end, and it's Hamas at the moment that is stopping the compromise. And how do I know that? Not because Israeli
I'm trying to keep you to this statement.
Because American sources are saying and are angry about the fact that Hamas refuses to sign a ceasefire.
But are you not at all concerned
that is the core of the problem?
That 25 European nations and Australia and New Zealand think Israel is now inhumanely killing civilians and is greatly tarnishing its own reputation, damaging Israel by continuing to behave like this?
If I hadn't been hearing the same thing for a year and a half, in fact, from the week up after October 7th, then I'd be a little bit more shocking. But we've been hearing this terrible propaganda that is propagating Hamas talking points since the week after October 7th.
Are you accusing the British government of supporting Hamas?
It's very difficult to take condemnation seriously when we've been hearing them for a year and a half and nobody's actually doing anything practical to help.
Well, that may be true, that not very much is being done, but the point is you're doing the killing. Now, let's turn to the abduction of doctors. Now, targeting doctors is a war crime, as much of the killing in Israel.
We are targeting terrorists. Unfortunately,
why are you abducting doctors?
Hide behind civilians. We have seen, unfortunately, that hospitals are used as terrorist sites. You know that. It's been proven.
Well, don't tell me what I know. I mean, you make all sorts of allegations.
The reports, yes, such as your allegations, there's also allegations. And ultimately, we have shown the world that there are tunnels under hospitals.
I'm talking about the doctors. I'm not talking about the tunnels. I'm talking about the doctors who were being abducted.
Gaza doctors were involved in the killing of hostages.
Well, they're not so-called doctors, they are doctors.
So-called Gaza doctors have been hiding terrorists in tunnels beneath hospitals. So I don't know, I'm not part of the intelligence community in Israel.
Do you have any evidence for that?
has been taken, but I'm sure it'll be proven soon enough that this doctor was also involved in terrorist activities, as most doctors in most hospitals in Gaza, unfortunately.
Well, a lot of those doctors have been released, having been abducted and taken off to be tortured. They've then been released. So perhaps they weren't terrorists after all.
You have no evidence of what you're currently accusing Israel of. And maybe, just maybe, they gave some important information to Israel where they could arrest more terrorists. How about that?
So you think it's a legitimate tactic to arrest doctors and question them?
If you think there is a terrorist...
In case they have information.
About, not in case, I'm sure there's plenty of intelligence. When people are taken for questioning, they're questioned because there's something about to happen, and that information could save lives. That's what Israel has always done, and that's what any normal country would do to defend its citizens.
Okay, well, if you don't like, you don't want to listen to the British government or 25 governments, what about the hostage families who are very worried that you have now opened this new front in Deir al-Balah where hostages may be being held? And they say you're going to sacrifice the lives of Israelis for your own ideology and to save the political career of Benjamin Netanyahu.
What ideology are you talking about? What ideology?
Well, this is their words, it's not my words. They're saying you are trying to preserve Benjamin Netanyahu and the ideology that's propping him up at the moment, and you are prepared to sacrifice hostages by now attacking Deir al-Balah.
We're not a country of ideologues, and listen, the hostage families have a right to think or say whatever they want. They have gone through immeasurable pain that no family should go through. And so I'm not going to criticize what they're saying. They have a right to be concerned anywhere where their children are hiding. They have a right to be concerned and anxious about that.
But you're going to do it anyway.
But what we have realized is that the only way Hamas ever compromised and has ever compromised in a hostage deal has been under fire, when negotiations are under fire. Otherwise, they do not release any hostages in exchange for Palestinian terrorists. Unfortunately, that is the pattern that Hamas have. We are talking about a Muslim Brotherhood genocidal terrorist regime that has taken their own people hostage, not just the Israeli hostages, their own people hostage. And if the world really wants to help, instead of writing empty condemnations and letters, what they should be doing is pressing Hamas to give up its power so the Palestinians can have a better life in the Gaza Strip.
Sir Hassan Nahum, thank you very much indeed.